This is the Momentum Podcast. Last week, I held one of my favorite calls to hold every month. We call it the CEO call. So we have a membership where we show companies how to grow and scale their businesses. And we focus on really three disciplines: creating a clear strategic plan on a monthly basis so everyone on your team knows where you're going. Second, communication systems. So understanding the cadence that you should use, the meetings you should use, so everyone on the team knows where you're going and no one's left behind. And then really the last one is building a team of true believers and building a team that really protects and supports you as the entrepreneur. And I love getting on calls and answering questions for all of the CEOs. And last week, when I was on that call, we had a really interesting conversation with one of our CEOs. And I want to share with you about why A players, the people you want on your team, fear underutilization more than anything else. I'm Alex Sharfin, and this is the Momentum Podcast, made for empire builders, game changers, trailblazers, shot takers, record breakers, world makers, and creators of all kinds. Those among us who can't turn it off and don't know why anyone would want to. We challenge complacency, destroy apathy, and we are obsessed with creating momentum so we can roll over bureaucracy and make our greatest contribution. Sure, we pay attention to their rules, but only so that we can bend them, break them, then rewrite them around our own will. We don't accept our destiny, we define it. We don't understand defeat because you only lose if you stop, and we don't know how. While the rest of the world strives for average and clings desperately to the status quo, we are the minority, the few, who are willing to hallucinate there could be a better future. And instead of just daydreaming of what could be, we endure the vulnerability and exposure it takes to make it real. We are the evolutionary hunters, clearly the most important people in the world, because entrepreneurs are the only source of consistent, positive human evolution, and we always will be. So first, let me share with you what happened on the call. So one of our members shared that, they've been going through some pretty stressful times. They had a 9-person team, and they let go of 2 people. And I asked, what are you feeling? What are you seeing after letting go of those 2 people, going from 9 to 7 people? That's a pretty significant percentage decrease in how many people are working in the company. And she said, it's interesting. I thought people would be upset. I thought people would be frustrated. I thought they would be upset with more work. But most of the team is a lot happier. Some are neutral, but some are a lot happier. And I laughed and I said, I call that multiplication by subtraction. And she said, well, why is it that it feels that way? And I said, because A players fear underutilization more than anything else. And immediately, one of our members, Gabe Arnold, was like, oh, I'd listen to a podcast on that. And so that's why I'm recording this, because this is one of those concepts that takes way too long to learn as a business owner, way too long to learn as a leader. And oftentimes we actually work in the wrong direction as leaders, and we push A players out because we underutilize them. We don't give them enough. We don't give them enough so that they feel utilized and a little bit more. And utilization is a term for how much is somebody being used of the time they have available. And for an A player, that means 8 hours a day. You have them doing something that is productive, that feels exciting, that feels like they're part of the team, that feels like they're moving the company forward. And if you're doing it any less than that, A players get scared. A players are scared when they're underutilized because they're A players, either consciously or subconsciously or less than consciously, they know that if they're underutilized, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with your leadership because you have them in a full-time position. They don't have full-time work. There's something wrong with the company because the company doesn't need them in the position they're in. And so why are they there? There's something wrong with the work that they're doing because they don't have enough of it to do. And somewhere in the business, there's a problem if an A player doesn't feel totally utilized. That's just how they feel. If they don't feel like they have enough to do, that's how they feel. And so I can't tell you how many times I've been through this scenario where somebody comes to me and says, I think I need to let a few people go. I have a 10-person team or a 12-person team or a 15-person team, and I'm really worried on what effect it's going to have on the rest of the team. And more often than not, I tell them, hey, in these situations, what often happens is you get multiplication by subtraction. They go, what does that mean? And I explain, you take a few people away and you get exponentially more out of the team. And it's so hard to believe until you've actually been through it, until you've done it yourself, until you've seen this transformation of a team when they feel fully utilized. Because here's what happens. When an A player is fully utilized, they're no longer worrying about all the issues in the company that could be causing their underutilization. And when an A player is fully utilized, you actually get more out of them in every hour that they're working because they're fully engaged. They're excited. They see the company moving forward. They know that they play a vital role. A players want to be needed more than anything else. A players want to well, maybe it's not being needed. A players want the company to need them more than just about anything else. They want to be happy with what they're doing. They want to be doing work that matters. They want to be making sure that the movement you are starting as or growing as a company is going to survive. They want to make sure your customers are happy, but they also must feel needed. A few years ago, I remember coaching another entrepreneur, and I'm not going to use names because I have not gotten permission to share this story, but I will change enough of the details so that there's no way you could line it up. But another entrepreneur I was working with was in my membership, and I hadn't talked to her in a while, and she came to one of our events, and she painted this scenario of she had a person who was her operator, a person in the operations role, and the operator had a baby. So she had to take some maternity leave, and she came back afterwards and had a baby. And this entrepreneur that I worked with and her operator were in the habit of getting together every morning before they got together for the daily huddle, and they would just talk and say, you know, what do you have for the day? What do I have? And so she came back from maternity leave, the operator did, and they get on their first call, and she says, you know, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? And the operator's like, you know what? I was not ready to have a baby. I didn't realize how much it took. I didn't realize how much she was going to need me, and, you know, how different things really are. And, you know, I feel like I'm being pulled in so many different directions, and it's just overwhelming right now. And so as a result, the entrepreneur thought to herself, well, okay, I need to take some stuff off of her plate, or I'm not going to give her as much. And so she had just come back from maternity leave, and, you know, part of the conversation was, hey, what do you have for me? It was like, you know, I think we're good. You can, you know, do what you feel like you need to do. You're just getting back. We'll take it easy. And so here's what happened. Over time, this was through an intervention in a class and having a conversation that we figured out what happened. Because over time, here's what happened. The entrepreneur, you know, a few weeks later, and in each subsequent day, they're having conversations with the operator, and the operator's telling her how overwhelmed she is by the baby and how the baby didn't sleep and how she didn't realize how many diapers it was going to take. That is really typical new parent stuff. And as a result of the explanations, as a result of what the operator was telling her, the entrepreneur kept holding back more and doing more herself and really trying to cover for her because she knew that this was like a really good team member. And she also had babies. And she's like, you know, I'm going to make it really easy on her right now. And so what happened was, over the course of about 6 to 9 months, that pattern continued of the entrepreneur pulling back more and the operator telling her how overwhelmed she was with the baby. But here's where the entrepreneur made a crucial and permanent mistake. She never asked the operator if she was overwhelmed at work. She just kept making the assumption that she couldn't do more. She kept making the assumption that she needed to pull back. She kept making the assumption that she shouldn't put as much on her shoulders. And as a result, at about 9 months, maybe a year in, the operator came to her and said, you know, I'm leaving the company, and I'm going to this other company that's growing a lot faster, and they need a lot more help. And honestly, for the last few months, I don't really feel like you've needed me. And, you know, I feel like there hasn't been enough for me to do, and they really need an operator. And I remember the entrepreneur I said, you know, what did you say? And she said, no, I need you. I've just been holding back. I've been, you know, trying to make it easier for you since you had a baby. And the operator said, you know, I appreciate that, but I didn't really want you to hold back. I've actually felt like there wasn't enough for me to do for a while now. And I've already made a commitment to this other organization. They're giving me a big pay increase that, you know, I know is going to help me and my family. And so I'm going to take this other position. And I remember the entrepreneur in our event sharing this with everybody, and the faces of the entrepreneurs in the audience, like kind of thinking, okay, this is something we have to be really careful with. Because here's the issue. If you assume that an A player is overwhelmed, you will often put them in a position of underutilization. And again, A players fear underutilization. A players will not stay in a place of underutilization. A players are not even really productive in a place of underutilization. In fact, I think part of the story with the entrepreneur holding stuff back and the operator not getting as much and holding stuff back was that the operator started making some small mistakes after a while, and then started making mistakes kind of everywhere after a while. Why? She was underutilized. She's worried. She was probably looking for another job. She was probably like completely torn on where her focus was because she felt underutilized. And so for you and your company, I want you to remember something. When you find somebody good, when you find somebody you know can help you get to the next place as an organization, when you find somebody you're excited about working with, make sure they have a full-time position in your business. They know how vital they are. They know how important they are, and they are fully utilized within the company. And you can do this if you're running on an operating system, if you're running in a cadence, if you're running in, like I said earlier, if you have that clear strategic plan, that communication system, and the way to build the infrastructure and build the team. And so if this is something where you want help, if this is something that sounds like something you want to explore, then go to the new homepage for my company, simpleoperations.com. Why we called that? Because we simplify the heck out of operations for entrepreneurs. And right there on the homepage, you can click to set up a call with a member of my team and let us explain to you how we help entrepreneurs do exactly what I've talked about on this call and grow businesses predictably so that you can get what you've always wanted out of your company and make the effect you've always known you could and go out there and change the world. So we'd love to hear from you, simpleoperations.com. And remember, when you have an A player on your team, utilization is one of the most important factors that will keep them there. Simpleoperations.com. Thanks for being here, and I look forward to hanging out with you again.